Republican State Senator Bryan Hughes of Tyler, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
So I wanted to start, ever since the Alabama Supreme Court issued its ruling nearly 1 month ago that embryos created in the in vitro fertilization process are considered children, a lot of people are very concerned here in Texas. And I'm wondering, what is Texas law? What does Texas law say about this process, first of all, and are there protections under state law to prevent a ruling in the Texas Supreme Court that would be similar to Alabama's?
Thank you, Jack. Many people are asking those questions. And so Texas law here is crystal clear. Back in 21, I carried the heartbeat law, Senate Bill 8, which has a specific provision for in vitro fertilization. It is exempted from Senate Bill 8. If you look at other abortion statutes, other pro-life laws in Texas, each one has an exception for IVF, for in vitro fertilization. So the pro-life laws in Texas are very clear, and they are not aimed at in vitro fertilization. It's specifically protected.
And have you been contacted by any organizations to change the law who agree with Alabama Supreme Court ruling?
I have not. I've received a number of questions and talked to some members of the press about the issue, but I have not heard a proposal to limit IVF in Texas. And as you probably know, Alabama, the legislature, after that Supreme Court opinion, passed a state statute making it clear that IVF is protected there. But you're right, not even necessary in Texas. We protect IVF. My goodness, those are parents who are trying to have children, and it's a difficult process. We don't want to get in the way of that. So Texas law is not messing with IVF.
And there's nobody, no fellow lawmakers who've suggested that either, right?
I have not heard a peep about that, and I certainly won't be doing anything like that.
And I know afterwards, Governor Abbott was asked about it on CNN. He said he wants to make it easier for people to be able to have babies, not make it harder. And the IVF process is a way of giving life to even more babies. But he said that Texas will be among the states that will be addressing this issue. But you're saying that's not necessary at all.
Well, so let me be clear. That Alabama case, as I understand, was about a family trying to have a child through IVF, and through alleged negligence or some other problems, one of those embryos was destroyed, not at the will of the parents. So, should they have a recourse? You bet. But nothing to protect those families will be done in Texas that limits people's right to pursue IVF. So, that may have been what the governor was talking about. We want to make sure that's clear. We want to protect the rights of people that are proceeding with IVF.
And I wanted to ask you about reproductive rights. Ever since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in 2022, there's been a lot of angst among Democrats, as you know, here in Texas, very upset about the state's abortion ban and the fact that the only exception is in the case of a mother's life being in jeopardy. There was a report that came out recently about 26,000 pregnancies through rape. And a lot of Democrats are upset about this. So what can you tell me about, this statistic and the fact that Democrats are trying to make this an issue nationally and here in the state?
Well, nationally and here, I don't blame Democrats for looking for something they can win on, because I don't want to be too partisan, but folks are concerned about inflation. They're concerned about the crisis at the southern border. So there's not a whole lot of winning issues for our Democratic friends these days. And I understand this is what they want to talk about, but we're glad to have a discussion because this is important. And you mentioned the life of the mother, and I'm glad you did. As you know, there's been some confusion and maybe intentional obfuscation of the law in Texas. If a mother's life is in danger, if her health is at risk, she is protected. And we've even passed a law last session to further clarify that. So, and you didn't mention that, but I want to make sure people do know that. There have been doctors and a few hospitals confused about that. But Texas law is clear. The life of the mother, the health of the mother is paramount. And if there's a danger there, she is protected and can move forward if she wants to. That's clear. Now, my goodness, rape is a horrible thing to think about. It's such a violent, unspeakable thing, and it does happen. You mentioned that one study with the 26,000 number. You know that's an outlier, and that study has been challenged from the left and the right. Look at numbers that come from the abortion industry, the Alan Guttmacher Institute, which is the statistical arm of the abortion industry. Their numbers say less than 1% of abortions in America are due to rape. And again, rape's a horrible thing. Florida has been keeping records. They say it's about 16% of a percent. But nevertheless, we want to help those women, come alongside those women. What we don't want to do is punish that little unborn child for a horrible act that's been done to the mother. In the course of this legislation, we've had a lot of testimony, a lot of folks who come to see us, moms who've been through that horrible experience of rape, some who decided to keep the child, some who chose not to. We've even heard from people who are themselves conceived in rape, and they've said to us, what my mom went through was horrible, but I'm glad I'm alive. I'm glad I'm here. I have value. I have worth. So these are hard issues to grapple with. They're not soundbite issues, and we're going to deal with them. We're going to listen to people. But in Texas, our focus is on protecting those little babies and helping the moms. Jack, you know, we've increased funding again for that program that gives real tangible help to pregnant moms, baby clothes, diapers, baby formula, help along the way before the baby comes, job placement, housing assistance, all things we can do to help and come alongside those moms. And we're going to keep doing that.
As you know, there have been cases that have made national headlines. Kate Cox of Dallas. I interviewed another woman, Dr. Austin Denard, uh, and she had a similar situation, troubled pregnancy, and they had to flee Texas, in their words, to get an abortion. And so I'm wondering, what do you make of that? Is that right? Do there need to be exceptions made in these kinds of cases?
It's an important question a lot of people are asking about, and to those moms, they should not have to go through what they have. We have some doctors and some hospitals who are either misunderstanding the law, misapplying the law. I can't tell you why. I hope, I hope they're not playing politics and trying to make hard cases that aren't necessary. But to be clear, if a woman's life is in danger, if her health is in danger, a major bodily function, she has the right in Texas to go forward with an abortion. And let me just say, with deep respect to those medical providers, to those doctors, to those hospitals, if a pregnant mother presents with an ectopic pregnancy, for example, she must be treated. Texas law explicitly provides for treatment in those cases. That's one example. The other really difficult case that we hear a lot about, where the mom's membranes rupture and the fluid is leaked out, the little baby's not going to make it, the mom is in great danger. We've had a handful of hospitals and doctors refusing to treat those cases until the mom gets worse. Texas law does not require that. We passed a law last year to make that even more clear. It is malpractice not to treat moms in those situations. I want to make sure everybody knows that. Those moms are protected by Texas law, and doctors and hospitals need to treat them that way.
So why is there so much confusion, do you think? And does the medical board or maybe the Department of State Health Services, whoever oversees hospitals, need to come in there and have some kind of webinar, something to clarify and make sure they know what the law is?
Jack, that's fundamental. This is a difficult issue. We're not always going to agree, but we should at least know what the law is and act accordingly and give those moms help. So yes, the Texas Medical Board is looking at this, I believe, to put out some guidance. The Texas Medical Association, which doctors belong to, they've addressed this. So has the Texas Hospital Association. I've been in touch multiple times with each of those groups. Anybody I can get in front of to make it clear. Here's what Texas law says. When we passed the heartbeat law, we did not even change the definition of medical emergency. We left the one in place that's been there for decades because doctors and hospitals know it. That did not change with the heartbeat law. That did not change when Roe went away. So we're doing everything we can to make sure that doctors and hospitals know what the law is in Texas.
And I just wanted to go back and ask you briefly about the situation with this Dr. Austin Denard. and she's part of the lawsuit. As you know, that the state Supreme Court now is still considering.
Right.
And in her case, because I asked if her life was in jeopardy, and she said at the time it was not. And so because of that, she had to leave the state, and she knew that her baby was, either going to be, wasn't going to make it. Whether, it was through the pregnancy, and, the baby would die afterwards, or it wouldn't make it through the pregnancy. And so I'm wondering about those cases. What is the law? What is the standard? And your thoughts about whether there should be change there.
So in those cases where the mother's life is in danger, her health is in danger, she can receive that treatment. The law's clear.
But
But
but in this case, that she was not, because I asked her that.
no, thank you. So if the question is the condition of the child, we heard so much testimony from parents, and I bet people watching this have either had this experience or have friends where the doctor said, this child's not going to make it. And today the child is out playing basketball and is living a normal life, or maybe living a life with a handicap, but living a life that is valued. And so in those cases in Texas, if it's about the child's condition, unless the child is in a situation where they're not going to make it, then abortion does not happen in those cases in Texas. In some states like Louisiana, they have a list of conditions, and in those cases of fetal abnormality can go forward. Some states leave it up to the doctor, but in Texas today, if it's about abnormality condition of the child, a fetal abnormality, abortion does not go forward in those cases because so many times those diagnoses turn out to be wrong. And we heard from so many parents who had children who were born with disabilities, and they told us how wonderful those children are, how loving, how much the parents love them. And so, again, if it's about a child having a disability under Texas law today, then abortion does not happen based on that.
And are you at all concerned about how the state Supreme Court is going to rule in this case?
We believe the Supreme Court will look at Texas law and apply the law. As you know, there's the legislature makes the law. The people of Texas, acting through the legislature, makes the law. The court is supposed to apply the law. And so if they see things differently, we can always go back and adjust it, just like we have to when the U.S. Supreme Court doesn't go the right way. But I believe the Texas Supreme Court will apply the law and come to the right decision.
And speaking of the U.S. Supreme Court, the today Justice Alito ruled that he extended the stay on SB 4, the state's new law that makes it a state crime for a migrant to cross the border into Texas. And I'm wondering what your reaction is. The stay is until next Monday. How do you think this is all going to shake out?
Well, we knew this law would end up before the U.S. Supreme Court. As you know, over a decade ago, Arizona tried something sort of in the ballpark, and the U.S. Supreme Court said, no, you cannot do that. Of course, here we are years later with a much different situation on the border. Our Texas law, SB 4, is very different than that Arizona law, and we also have a very different U.S. Supreme Court. So we believe they're going to get to the right place. And so, like you were watching to see what they do with the stay, when are they going to hear the case? Are they going to extend it? We're optimistic that they're going to uphold Texas' right to defend Texas and really to defend America.
And if they don't, then the state has to, I guess the law won't be able to go into effect. And what does the state legislature do after that?
If they block this law, we'll come back with another law. We'll read their opinion very carefully, see what their problems are, what their concerns are. We'll address them and come back. We're not going to sit around and let this crisis continue.
Republican State Senator Bryan Hughes of Tyler, thank you so much for your time today. We really do appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.